All right, everyone, welcome back to the second session of the outcome-driven product leader course. I hope that you all had a productive start to your week. Let's keep it that way, if so. Before we get started with the agenda for today, I wanted to remind everyone to please join the Slack channel. Thus far, we have had 20% of the course joined, which means 2 people. So if we can get that to 100%, I am super happy. It's free to join. You have a course-specific channel to talk amongst yourself, and then we're going to add people as we do more courses, and we're going to add regular Delibr users as well. So hopefully to grow the community. And yeah, super easy way to catch up with me, Niels, Nicole, anyone else in Delibr.
Have we had the invite through via email for that?
Correct.
Oh, okay, I'll have a look now.
Yes. So if you haven't gotten the link, we have a problem. Tell me about that, because then my emails are not going through. But hopefully you got my emails, the follow-up emails from last session, and then you should have the link in there. All right, cool. So this was the agenda for our first session. We talked about leveling up and becoming a product leader, and more specifically, Niels talked about aligning on product goals and prioritizing user problems. And the idea was that we're going to have some exercises, but time ran out in the end. So what we did do was we looked at the homework for today's session, which was to create a draft OST inside of Delibr. And I wanted to ask you guys, did you manage to get anywhere with this this homework?
Yes, but I have several questions which arise while doing it. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's exactly what we want to happen.
Yeah. So what questions? I'm excited.
Yeah. So first one is so it's really hard to start if you see the whole company and you don't focus on one outcome, but you really want to start from the top. And my question was: is there this one tree, or is it always that you have different trees? So, for example, we made one tree from the business perspective and one from the user opportunity perspective or outcome perspective. And we felt it's very hard to combine it to one, or which one should we, or is it the totally wrong approach because we ended with two trees, or yeah.
No, that's a super good question. And I guess that's the like the making the bridge is the tricky part, but it could also be that you have so you said you had one completely business-like breakdown. Was that like a P&L type breakdown that you ended up with, or like a funnel-based breakdown?
Yeah, so we started basically with having more revenue, and in the end, obviously, we ended up with some things like, yeah, it's important that the usage is high because it leads to more revenue, but you could also think it from the other perspective and see, okay, what saves the user the most time, and go from that and go down, and you end up with 2 different trees. Yeah.
Okay, so you're kind of, I know your kind of customer outcome, the thing that you want your customers to get at is saving time.
Yes, perhaps it's a little bit tricky in our case because we have customers and users and they're not the same. So we have a B2B product. So it changes because in the test phase, it's basically only about bringing the management the outcomes they want. Yeah. And in the later phase, it's more important that the usage is on a stable level, because otherwise it generates a lot of effort for us.
Yeah.
On that level.
No, but I think that's a very good start. And I guess so if you have those 2 kind of clear anchor points on one end, kind of the revenue and the kind of the flavor of revenue breakdown that fits your business the best, and then you have your two main kind of stakeholders or customer and user here, like buyer and user, I guess it really is. And then you have a breakdown based on kind of the jobs that they want to do or the interests that they have and what benefits you could get to them. If you make those, I guess, 3 trees even and break them down, then it's a really good kind of prep work. And then you can start to say, so where do what part of our business tree do we want to push now? And then you can do on that goal breakdown, you can prioritize. And then when you have like this area is the most important drive now, then you could look at the other trees and say, is there any user-centered tree that we could bring in here and see if it fits? So I guess, but that's not possible to do unless you've done the exercise of breaking down all 3 perspectives first. So I think it's sounds like a really good start, if that makes sense.
Okay, so it means that we will always have several trees, or is the ultimate goal to have 1 tree? I didn't get that totally.
Oh, yeah, good. Yeah. No, I don't think the goal should be to have 1 master tree to rule them all. I think the tree should have a longevity that is, I don't know, it could be like anywhere from a quarter is probably the smallest time a tree should live. Could be even shorter, but that's normally the minimum, and it could be like a year, or which could even stretch more. But you should have like a time phase where you say, now this is what we really try to accomplish, and then you try to understand the user's problems around that thing you accomplish, and then afterwards you can say, we did this now. Let's find the next good outcome to work towards. So I think they should be kind of semi-long lived, but they should not be like the ultimate, this is gonna stay forever. Even Slack, a band, they had this 200 messages in the first 2 weeks or whatever. They also dropped that now. So they had that for a while, and then they drove everything towards that, and then they said like, now we're really, really good at this, and then they kind of dropped it out. Yes, Etty.
Yeah. Okay, so I built my tree like very simple, based on one of my like initiatives, and that was not hard, but it's very simple. But then I'm thinking like what I'm missing from, our CEO is like a better direction. As you said, the last time that it shouldn't be like metrics, it should be more like outcomes.
Yep.
But they are not giving this to us, right? The business part are not giving that to us. So I was thinking maybe we should try to work on that ourselves. So if one of the company goals is like increase user retention.
Yes.
And it's not really an outcome, but then we work from there. So the top layer would be, so can we have the top layer as retention, and then how can I have like an outcome? How can I have that before the outcome?
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's super good. So I think like increased retention, it's clearly like if you categorize between business outcomes and product outcomes and maybe also customer outcomes, then increased revenue, increased retention is clearly a business outcome. But then you need some qualitative or understanding, like why do people fall out? What happens? To find your analogy to this lying down in a bed. So if you then look at maybe survey data for people leaving, why did they leave, or maybe interview people that left and or even interview people that are extremely happy, you could look at both ends and you talk to them to gather some feeling for what's the lay of the land here, and then you start to hear things. Oh, actually, several people that left said that they left because they couldn't do something that they really wanted to do. And then maybe from that point on, you see, you realize that actually, if we can make more people succeed with doing this type of behavior, we believe that retention is going to go up and churn down.
Mm-hmm.
So then what you could do is to take that, when you have that type of insight, you could try to make the case. If you remember the discussion we had about lying down in a bed versus sales, and then you have a discussion with leadership saying, you know what I think? We want to increase retention, right? And then they say yes. And then you say, look here, I found that one of the main drivers of retention is people being able to do X. And then they say, so I think we should really focus for the next quarter or so on driving X. And then you can have a discussion. And if they say, yes, that makes sense, then you have a perfect product goal, if that makes sense.
Yes, that is great. But then I was thinking maybe as a feedback to Delibr, because then in Delibr, I would like to see that business goal on the top of my tree, just so I can work my way down and then also present it in a nice way in the tree. Or do you think that's I don't know?
No, I think it makes perfect sense. But you can, right? Or how do you mean?
But when I build the tree, the first layer there is the outcome, which to me would be a product goal, right? An outcome.
Yeah. So we thought about it as it could be a business goal or a product goal. But if that's not, then we could clarify that more, because I think I agree with you. The distinction between business outcomes and product outcomes and even customer outcomes or jobs to be done, those are tricky things to think about and to get right. So maybe we should clarify that even more. I think that's good feedback. I take it to heart.
But now actually I didn't know, but I saw that you can actually have an outcome under an outcome.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so then I can use the first one with the business and the second one with the product.
Exactly. I think that's super good.
Great, thanks.
And adding on to this, so one way that I've been doing it inside of Delibr is to have one goal breakdown tree where you start with the high level business objective, and then you break that down, and you're going to eventually find out that you have several potential product outcomes that you could work towards, right? And I don't know if you have found the way that you can carve out a card in your opportunity solution trees or your goal breakdown trees. And then you can place that in a new opportunity solution tree as the top card. And thereby you have link between so you have one view that is like the business objectives all the way down to your product goals. And then you have separate documents or OSTs for your individual product goals and the opportunities, the solutions, and so forth. And if that's not clear, I'll follow up after this and show you guys how to make that connection, because that's pretty powerful. I saw that we have some comments in the chat. Unfortunately, I have too bad internet to even open the chat right now. so if there was comments or questions, do let us know what they were, because I can't open the chat.
So it was Kirin that said that he asked the customer success, I guess it is, and project managers what number they optimize for, and look as that outcome to start with. I think that sounds like a good one as well, to think about the business to get like a top business outcome and then work from there. Is that how you think about it, Kirin?
I think we may have lost him.
No. Is there anyone who feel brave enough to share their OST with the rest of the group?
Yeah, I'm happy to share, actually, because I was facing the same struggle. I started really from the business, and then I'm trying to connect the business with the product. And inevitably, this becomes a big tree. But I'm actually comfortable with big trees because you can collapse them. And I prefer to centralize that in one big tree and just expand whatever branch is useful based on the conversation you're having. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, that's really your choice. It's arbitrary. You can literally create 50 different trees. As long as they're MISI, I think you should be fine. Whatever works to communicate what you need to communicate. I think that's my kind of take, but I'll try to, obviously the content will not be, don't focus on the content because it'll be really, yeah, you won't get it, obviously. But just that it's a fun exercise. I'll zoom in a little bit, and I would love to get feedback on whether this makes sense or not. essentially, so I start at the very top, which is very business driven. So it's not a North Star product oriented metric. It's really starting from the top, which is you want to maximize company profit. All right. You could argue this is the goal of every enterprise. You could potentially kill that level, but just to be exhaustive, I wrote it all the way at the top. Maximize profit is always revenues and costs. I'm not going to focus on costs, so I want to collapse the cost one, and I'm just going to focus on revenue. And then revenue, under revenue, I split that into three main it's a lower level business outcome. I often think in our ARM, activation, retention, monetization. So increase user activation, sorry, maybe it's a bit small. I have no idea when I share. Increase user engagement and retention, and then increase user monetization. So that's typically the ARM driver tree. And then what I do is I have an extra layer. I'm abusing here the outcome step because for actually what drives that outcome, what are the underlying forces of that? What's the formula basically? Because
Yes.
user activation, what is that? How do you calculate that? And actually like to decompose that mathematically first, which would be, it's probably not even, I was doing this quickly, but it's the number of signups and the activation rates. And even within this, do we want to focus on number of signups, meaning it's different work, it's more marketing, growth work, how do we get more traffic to our website? Or do we want to focus more on activation rate, which may be more already the in-app experience? Whatever that may be, right? You want to identify areas of improvement. And I like to break that down even more. The same way with increased user monetization. So I'm working on this trading app. And the way we make money is the number of assets you have times the number of transactions. So do we want to focus on having users doing a lot of transactions, or do we want to focus on them buying a lot of assets, whatever that may be? And so within each of these KPI, you have opportunities that you can go ahead. And so just for the sake of an example.
So one thing that I noticed there, I think is really like an interesting thing, because I really like the how might we's framework that you used here. How might we maximize the number of horses? But I think this is starting to approach product outcome. One of the things that I try to think about when it comes to opportunities is that an opportunity, the kind of pink layer, in order to flip the perspective, is like, this is something a user should be able to say. And from that perspective, I think this middle one, I think you can just change type on it and something. If that's an outcome, then I think it's a really good product outcome. Yeah, look, exactly. Now you have business outcomes, and exactly, and then now you have a product outcome, and then you want them to have the behavior of having more horses in their portfolio. I guess this is now a behavior that you could drive in different ways. Yeah, exactly. And then you start these steps are done. Now we're in the pink area because this is stuff that they do. And exactly like you said, like then they have concerns around the different parts of these steps. So this right here now, the stuff that starts with this product outcome starts to look like a great start for an opportunity solution tree, I think.
If I can give my 2 cents also on this to see what you think about, but when I try to do my own, during these last couple of days, normally in the outcomes, I always try to put not maximization or things like this, but a number that you can reflect upon. So instead of number of horses, the outcome would be includes the number of horses by X%. And then the opportunity is always the phrasing of a problem. The problem is that today we cannot sell additional horses because blah, 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 or whatever. And then you can find different solutions for each of those problems. So the way at least I think about it is the outcome is something measurable that you want to improve or decrease or whatever. And then the opportunity is actually a problem. I don't call it opportunity, which is an opportunity, but I always define it as a problem, so to say, if this makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. Especially we can try, we already have that number in mind. And of course it's completely unvalidated, but we believe it's a hypothesis that if we get a user to have 50 assets in their portfolio, that's kind of like the magic number of getting them engaged, which is obviously we don't know that, but at least we can try to put a number on that.
I think I agree, and I think one thing that you said, Nicholas, I think is especially important. I think it depends on your maturity around thinking about this goal. For example, if it's something that you're absolutely starting out with, but you know you want to increase this, but it's important, but you don't know enough to know what does good look like. Then I think it's you could set a number, but it doesn't add much value. But as you learn more and start to form an idea, like you just expressed now, Nicholas, like if it's 50 horses, okay, now I actually think that if we can get it to 50, that could be the magic number. So let's go for that. Like, I think it's better if you have the understanding to have it as a number, but if you don't have that understanding, I think it's still good to have something that is like directionally, numerically where you know you want to go, if you know what I mean.
No, 100%. I like both. It really depends on maturity. We are starting from scratch, which is why I said maximize, because I don't know what that number is. But if you're more mature and you already know that the average user has 25 assets in their portfolio, you already know where you're headed, but we don't. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks for the feedback. I didn't see the name of the person giving feedback, but that was good feedback.
Yeah, me neither. Who was it?
Me, Pablo.
Oh,
thanks,
okay.
Pablo.
Cool. Thanks, Pablo.
No worries, of course.
And thank you for being so brave to kind of front your tree, Nicholas.
Yes, and this is perfect because this was a merge between a goal breakdown tree that we talked about in the first session and an opportunity solution tree. So this is one way of doing that.
Exactly.
Sure. Awesome. We are at 30 minutes in, and Kirin has one more question. Should we take that question, and then I'll hand it over to you, Niels, to start the today's session with some slides.
Yeah, Kirin had a question here.
You told us last session that MISI is important for OSCs. What to do with solutions which serve two opportunities or even two outcomes? Change the solution.
No, I think that's good. The super good question, and I think like I think the MISI part works really well for the goals, and it also works really well for the opportunities. But if you've done the great MISI tree and then you have a solution, like some solutions, they are applicable to several opportunities or even several goals at the same time. And then there's actually one way to do that quite nicely in Delibr. So if you carve the solution out as a solution document, then you can then it becomes like a reference, and you can actually copy that over. Me or maybe Andrea or someone could show you exactly how to do it in Delibr. But in the beginning, all is just bullets, but you can carve it out as documents. And then once it's a document, it's a reference. So then you can refer to the same solution in several places. And if you change it in one place, it's the same in all the other places as well. So I think it doesn't have to be MISI from the solution level in that sense, because I think just like you say, there could be solutions that are applicable to several places. So very good point. Thank you.
Thanks for clarification.
Yeah. Then Etty also had a question. I like it. Nicholas also. Yeah, I think the steps in the opportunity solution tree is like when we worked with it. And if you look, I don't know if you read the book, this Continuous Discovery Habits by Teresa Torres. She doesn't have steps as an opportunity. She just says everything is just opportunities. But so often when you start to think about it, and it's like something a user goes through and they think about it, the top level opportunities is what Teresa Torres would call them. Top level opportunities tend to be of a step-like character. So to kind of make that thought process a little bit easier to do, we added that kind of as an extra type in the kind of user-centric part. So you can kind of actually, now I'm thinking about the steps that the users go through, and you hear them do this step over and over. So it's just like a flavor of an opportunity, but it's very centered on now the user is doing something. It helps you structure the tree a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, Andrea dropped out. Okay, so it's me and you guys. So, but it's actually perfect timing, because when we discussed before how to run it, we said try to have the discussion about your trees for about 30 minutes, and then we jump in. But I'll ask, does any have any objections to us jumping back into the presentation now? No objections. Cool. Then I will share my screen and start my presentation. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, then let's go. So now we have this the what should you call it, like the slide portion of the second session. So what I wanted to talk about in this session is a little bit coming back to this leveling up, but across the different levels of autonomy, but taking it back to the product management process and thinking about what product managers can do to kind of take leadership across the product management process, and in that way level up. And then the second topic I wanted to talk about is kind of how to think about moving teams towards a setup that makes it easier for them to become autonomous. And then lastly, how to kind of, once you have this outcome focus in the early part of your work, to keep that outcome focus all the way into delivery. And so the theme here is a little bit, last time around, we talked about opportunity solution trees in theory, and kind of how you could put how they could work kind of by and of themselves. Now we're like having a little bit of a thought idea, like what if you throw them into reality? What happens then? So that's the overall theme, and now I'm stepping into the first one. So let's look back at these three steps that we mentioned last time. So level one was when PM just received a set of requirements to specify, very kind of detail focused work. And then leveling up, where the PM they receive like prioritized feature ideas and customer requests at a higher level to refine and detail out and figure out how to make the best out of those features, and then make sure they get delivered. And then the next level up is when the product manager steps up into negotiating the outcome, discovering and validating opportunities and solutions. And this is really what we spent most of the time on figuring out, and this is where the opportunity solution tree comes in. So first, quick recap. First level, the PM is the user is really far away, and the PM really comes in towards refinement and delivery phase, really development, and we think about it. And the users are far away, and they receive stuff to do from the stakeholders or leadership. Second level, start to add a little bit more. The product manager starts to work with feature documents. They get into feedback, collecting what the feedback was. They are a little bit engaged in the prioritization, work more with the holistic refinement of it, also think about the rollout part of delivery, and also think about, as they do this feature, how do they validate if it worked or not? So they take a little bit more of a longer perspective. And when they do this, when they kind of take this stepping up to level 2, working with epic documents across the process can help the teams beyond just delivering the Jira tickets, but actually thinking about the epic in a whole way, and having one document, one solution as one contained source of truth, and working with that across the process really helps the PM to kind of be in charge of this entity that they're now working with. And so a crucial first step for a PM who wants to go beyond just writing tickets is to kind of get close to the incoming flow of feedback. So we talked about user interviews last time around, but you all know that's not the only type of feedback you have. You also have this kind of push feedback that gets pushed towards you all the time. And so one important aspect for PMs is to kind of get up and close and personal with that feedback as well, have good collaboration with support, maybe have them send you like tag tickets for you that's relevant for you and your domain, or whatever, and then kind of have a good process of going through and processing that feedback and allocating it to whatever opportunity or solution that it might be relevant for, and then kind of ticked it off, so you kind of have a flow for that. Another thing that's really important, like once the PM starts to understand the underlying feedback and why it might be relevant to do something, it's time to engage in prioritization of features. Later, also great to do goals and problems, be part of prioritizing that. But here in level 2, it's really about like, so now you received a lot of feedback, you have a feature that's up and running, not just accept, okay, I'm going to do this feature, but try to engage saying, why should we do this? You could go in and figure out work with a kind of RISE perspective, like understand who is the target, what's the measure of success, think a little bit about where did the feedback come from, how do we know it's going to work, confidence, and work with the engineers to get kind of the effort estimated. Then you get something like a RISE, but maybe also good to complement that with getting the feedback from different people, like who thinks what is important, and then have like this, be part of or drive this discussion where features are prioritized. And so, and then of course, this will amount to some kind of either now, next, later roadmap and or some kind of Gantt chart. But this is something that happens. And so it's important to not believe that the only thing that happens is the opportunity solution tree, but the opportunity solution tree has to connect to this type of work that happens. And you see lower right corner here, like one part the opportunity solution tree can really play powerfully here is when it comes to the confidence aspect of features. Because if it's something that you have seen a lot and you did some experiments for, and you can show that in the opportunity solution tree, that's going to kind of spike the confidence of that feature and help you drive that discussion. But then if we stick with prioritization a little bit and think about where the opportunity solution tree comes in, like by working top down from goal to opportunity and then down to feature, when you're prioritizing, you can reduce a lot of complexity. It's like you get from a situation where you have a lot of features and your job is pick one. And you're like, this is like 40, like which one? I don't know. You try to put some framework or you figure it out. Versus if you get to align on a goal, you get to align on the problems that you can solve to drive that goal and prioritize among those problems. And then you have a much smaller set of features that you then has to choose between. And it's an easier job. Still have to pick, and maybe that's similar, but it's an easier job. Because you can take away all the ones that are not the priority for the goal and not the priority for that problem that was prioritized. Of course, this is not, you can't only do this. But if you say that you're going to do a big portion of what you do, it's going to drive towards this focused approach, then you get a lot of help in prioritizing from doing that. I'm going to throw up a meme now that I think is kind of funny. I actually made it today. It's easy. So the point here is it's easy to drown in complexity by overcomplicating prioritization. Have you seen this mid-wit meme? Basically, it says that somebody who is not that bright, they have an understanding of what it is they should do. In this case, I want to build the things that take me closer to my goal. It's like a very simple thing like I just want to do. And then somebody who's a little bit more advanced says, no, you need a complex algorithm to calculate what to build next based on how many users are affected, how much they are affected, how sure you are and how hard it is to build. And you need to do this for all the options that you go through, all the different potential solutions, even though you don't know how to do it. You just need to. And then he's like really upset and he sits with a really big table of solution that he has to score on RISE, and it's really a mess. But then as you kind of level up to this, I don't know if it's a Jedi master at the top, that person says the same thing. It's like, I want to build the things that take me closer to my goal. And then that takes you back to the opportunity solution tree. So it's really a way to for you to transcend complexity if you manage to have this type of goal to focus on. Oh, I see there's a lot of comment now. Maybe I should try to answer those. Andrea, are you looking at the comments?
Yeah, I've been answering them. I don't think it's anything you need to.
Okay, good, because I can't see the comments when I'm presenting. I can see there's like a ticker. So please interrupt me if I should go and answer a question.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So that's a little bit on prioritization and what level 2 brings you to, but also how you can get away from that by striving for level 3. And then a really important thing when it comes to taking a lead role in refining feature holistically is a refinement and really working with features holistically. And here, like, you start out simple, you add a lot of details to the feature, figure out what are the topics we're going to cover, start to write and think about it, maybe start some user stories. It gets a little bit more prioritized, like, yeah, okay, this might be something we should be doing. And then you need to bring in more people to really figure out how you're going to do it, and also start thinking about like rollout, what's going to happen next. But all of this, we'll dig a little bit deeper into the refinement part later. And then, of course, like PMs who take a holistic lead of features, they also need to think about delivery, not just as development, but also as rollout. Like the top row here, development, that's kind of bread and butter for PMs, right? You figure out what the feature is like, you slice it into stories, you hand it over to the developers, follow up on that and do kind of review stuff. But the next level, or like, to really take ownership of a feature, you also need to think about what's the rollout plan, what's going to happen here, like what's going to release, what's going to the release notes be, like who do we need to contact when we have built this? It's like, how do we follow up on this to make sure it worked the way we thought about it? Like, how can we communicate it? Maybe it's even like a bigger launch that you need to do. Like really thinking about everything that needs to be done by other departments except for just developing and releasing the feature. Cool. So that's one thing. And then another aspect that PMs need to, as they go into this level 2, is take a lead in validating that the solutions work, at least by doing analysis. So having this measure of success for the feature and following that up with some kind of analysis a little bit later. Did it play out the way we thought it would? But then ideally, if you start to work in a like more of a, maybe with opportunity solution trees, doing discovery, then it also makes sense because you will have so many different potential solutions to really important problems. So you need to narrow down, and then testing assumptions becomes an even more reasonable thing to do, because one of the things that happen in the feature factory is you just given features. And so validating that doesn't really have a much of a role. But as you start to go into discovery and figure out more and more potential solution, it becomes even more important to kind of validate and kind of carve away those features that you actually, we shouldn't build it like this, or we shouldn't do it like that. So then validation comes in as like the lowest level of the opportunity solution tree, where you say, this is a solution that's super hot. What are the experiments we need to do to make it? Cool. And then as you do go towards here this level 3, then you also get into closer contact with both the stakeholders and negotiate the strategy and into discovery with the customers. And so and here, like we talked about before, the opportunity solution tree is a really good way for product managers to kind of stretch this way up in the process, to talk about the outcome as a way to get into the strategic thinking and really dive into discovering the user space with opportunities. And so that's something that can help you structure and kind of drive that work and also motivate it with the rest of the organization. And so when it comes to strategy, for PMs to be outcome driven in the way we talked about, they need to be close enough, at least, to strategy work to be able to kind of step up and negotiate their outcome. Exactly like you described, Etty. It's like if they have we want to have retention, that's now a priority. Okay, why? What are we trying to do here? Like what does our business model look like? What are really our value propositions? Who's the ideal customer? What are the competitors doing? And then really figuring out the strategic focus, and then also doing the bunch of linked to this discovery to figure out what's really the point. And then you can be like, okay, this should be my outcome, and have like a strong perspective on that. And then the way for PMs to kind of once they have this goal to really produce real innovation, is to become the experts of their own users through interviews. We talked about this one last time around, but I can't emphasize it enough how important it is to stretch in the type of activities you do beyond just receiving feedback to actually going out there and finding research subjects to talk to and have a good rolling schedule and kind of collecting and structuring all the things that you learn so that you'll be able to produce much better solutions than you would. I'm sure you've heard this old phrase by Henry Ford when he built the car. He said, if I would have built what users asked for, I would have built a faster horse. And as you know, he built a car instead. So by understanding that what is it that you want, in this case, they wanted just to go really much faster and not have the hassle of handling a horse. Sorry, Nicholas, but I guess your horses are handled for a different purpose. I just figured out now I was arguing against horses. No offense meant. But then like the idea is to kind of the combination of understanding the real needs of the users and working closely with the engineers, you can really figure out something powerful. Okay. Now I just went through this kind of view of what the different aspects of product work is. And so what I wanted to do is, again, I want to remind you, like, we're going to do breakout sessions here. So please remember to take a screenshot of these questions so you have it. But the questions to discuss is, number one, how would an opportunity solution tree fit into the way that we currently work with these activities? And then, secondly, what activities that you do now would be affected if you started using opportunity solution trees? And what would the kind of change be if you have a process that to some extent is similar to the one that I described? It's different in some ways, of course, but roughly. And then if you took opportunity solution trees and added that to the way you work now, what would happen?
I think that Nicholas, you're very, very good at speaking, so you can go ahead. You're really good. I'm like.
No, but we said we actually said the same things, Etienne and also with Niels. We kind of agree that the way we see this today, at least in our context, is as a powerful tool to negotiate with the founders on prioritization and where does this fit into the bigger picture. So really the term like negotiation came back on the table and really visualizing that's the whole thing, like visualizing that and exposing that, right? Because I've also realized that if you don't visualize, if you don't document, then it's very easy for people and especially founders who are a bit delusional and I'm not it's just a bit of a character trait that founders have, where they think that things go much faster than they really can go. And by visualizing that, exposing that, it really, really helps driving that conversation. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah.
Nothing against founders, huh? I love founders, but
without founders, every company had a founder once, and some have more than one. It's super cool, and I think you guys are from similar sized companies as well, right? So it makes a lot of sense. Group number 2, I have a bad memories. I don't really remember who was in there. I think it was Brian, Owen, and Helena.
Yeah, we were saying pretty much the same thing as well. We think it's a very powerful tool to explain to the higher ups, the C-suite or the founders, how the ideas you've come up with or the things you're looking to drive will deliver the outcomes they're looking for. Especially for myself and Brian, you know, we work with a Brazilian company, so we're working with the international product guys, and there's a Brazilian product team, and a lot of little things can get lost in translation. A lot of assumptions are made that, you know, we're talking about the same thing they already have when there's nuances. So having a visual aid like this will negate the need to knock together a PowerPoint presentation every time. You know, we want to have a conversation about something in depth. So yeah, it should be really, really powerful for us.
Interesting. It's interesting that both of you guys mention kind of communicating up the ladder, so to speak. But if you think about opportunity solution trees and where they come from, especially from Teresa Torres, it's a discovery technique to help us guide kind of where to dig deeper into the next customer problem. But I guess that also starts to happen more as you actually get into using them. The last group was the one that I joined. So we had Pablo and we had, let's see, Kirin and Veronica.
I can actually go with a question that actually I raised. Yeah, so yesterday I actually used the Delibr thing. I created my own tree, and I presented part of it, not the entire thing, to the CEO, because we actually just started to chat and show it to him. And one of the things that I found, and actually means that the question goes for you, going to if you worked in McKinsey, all the when you have these opportunities or the things that you want to focus on, you need to, so you want to say, and I told him, look, I think this is where we should be putting our efforts. And he said, no, actually, this is where we should be putting our efforts. And then I was missing financials or metrics, because I can say, no, I think here we're going to have more impact on the final outcome. But he was saying, no, I think this other one is going to have more impact on the same outcome. So how do you deal with those situations where you cannot really agree? Of course, he has the upper level, the upper management. But...
super good question. I think if I understood you correctly, you were agreeing on what goal to focus on, but then within that goal, you had different customer problems that you wanted to focus on.
So actually, if I can give more that the exact situation was, okay, we want to increase our branding revenue, which is one of our main sources of revenue. We can do it in two ways: either increasing the amount of average ticket size in the smaller clients, or either taking more clients to the premium levels. To me, we have so much growth to have in the smaller clients that it would make more sense to focus on those instead of taking clients to the premium levels, which is way more complicated. And he thought the opposite, and we didn't have any financial tools to actually see the impact. You know what I mean? So everything was based on intuition still, even if we had the idea clear, but the intuition was still there.
No, and I mean, in a way, I think I'm gonna do I'm gonna stick my neck out and do the unpopular thing here now. It's very. I had Matt LeMay, who is a thought leader. He was here in Stockholm, and we had dinner with him once, a week back, and then he said he was at Mind the Product one time, and he said one thing he said was he went up on stage with product managers, and he said, your job as a product manager is not to decide the goals to focus on in product. And all the product managers went silent, and it was almost booed, but everybody knows it's actually kind of true. And so I think in this situation, I think the higher up you go in the goal tree, the more in reality it will be the executives that will drive it. And so here to drive what of those two goals, to go for bigger ticket customers or many small customers, that depends on a lot of different things. It's a really difficult business strategy decision. And my only answer to which one is true is it depends. And so I think it's great over time if you get deep enough in strategy to have those types of discussions. But if you think back about kind of being able to focus and work, I think in this case, and I realize maybe this is unpopular, but I think your best course of action is to say, aye, Captain, if that's what you say, if that's what you think, then let's go with it. In McKinsey, there's one of the principles, it's obligation to dissent. It's like, if you don't agree, you have to say it. But linked to that one, it's also another one that is disagree and commit.
Disagree and commit.
So I think in this situation, even though it's a little bit painful, I think based on the organizational setup that you're describing, I think your best course of action is probably, at least for now, to disagree and commit. But because that still gives you a really clear goal to work with and drill down from that one. Yeah, I'm sorry if this is not the popular answer, but that's
No, I agree. It's still an answer. So yeah.
And if I may add,
that is great feedback. I'm going to use the obligation to dissent and disagree but commit in my meeting tomorrow. That's brilliant.
Thank you.
Because we run gangs, like, you know, the Spotify model.
Yep.
We, above our squad, we've got chapters, and above all the chapters, we have gangs on a particular topic, and we're struggling to get feedback from the gang on whether they disagree with me or not. So I want to use that. There's an obligation to disagree, and then the management will decide on the goal, and then you commit to it. So thank you.
Nice.
Is there a way that we can maybe still use the opportunity solution tree to capture both those? So let's say, you know, effectively it's all for the same larger goal, but their vision is a little bit higher than what you're looking to actually go for. Is there a possibility to start at a higher level and then drill down to maybe your idea or your opportunity and be able to kind of, as you get more information and more factual, you know, whether it's reporting, whether it's data, to then revisit it and say, okay, maybe it does make sense to go here versus here. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think what's the best way to not make anyone feel like the idea is lost or the opportunity is lost, but then you're also compromising and everyone kind of gets a voice, even if you decide in one direction to move based on, as you know, as you get more feedback, information, data, and gather more facts.
Yeah, no, I think Veronica, I think you have a good point. And I mean, there's nothing preventing you, Pablo, from back pocket having your own opportunity solution tree where you say, I don't remember if you wanted to go for this many small ticket items, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
To have that back pocket and kind of build it out a little bit and see what pops up. Because they disagree, you can think about disagree and commit for now, in a way. And then maybe 3 months down the line, you say, hey, wait a minute, I thought more about this. I just want to revisit this decision a little bit. And then you
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how what you had in mind as well, Veronica, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. No, fair. Cool.
Fantastic. The floor is yours, Nils.
Okay, cool. I'm already sharing, right? Cool. Then the next one, I think it's interesting because what popped up from this discussion was a discussion about empowered teams, actually. So it gives us a nice segue into the next one. And I think, I mean, you've seen the book, I don't know if you have seen the book Empowered by Marty Kagan, but basically the entire book talks about this topic. How do you work with a product organization so that you can have empowered product managers? And to me, one of the most important aspects of this is what Marty refers to as team topology. Topology, I think originally it's like if you look at mountains, how they are arranged, but it's also like a structural mathematical thing, like how things are arranged. And basically, if you have a structure of the teams that can kind of give PMs one product area that they can have like a clear customer set for, and that they can work with a little bit longer term, that gives them a much better base to be empowered. And so this is like a part of his book, like empowered, they have the employer teams and job seeker teams. They are two, I don't know if you call it the chapters, Brian, but, and then you have like teams within that. So you have employer home, recruiter tools, premium services, enterprise tools. And like, if you think about being the enterprise tools PM, here you're like, you know, you're part of you're working towards the employers, and you're actually working towards specifically enterprise employers and working with them to figure out how you can make their situation better. You can have goals that are related to those, you know, who you can interview. You can really work with the whole chain around here, and to make that true for as many as possible, to structure your teams in that way so that the teams can work like that. I think that's a crucial part. And then, of course, because of technical realities, you have to carve out some platform teams that will lie in the background and basically help the other teams. But that system, I think, is really good. I think I mentioned in the first, I worked for 8 or 9 years on the board of directors of Storytel. Storytel is an audiobook company. They're like Spotify, but for audiobooks. And when I was there, they grew from it was what 20 people when I joined the board, and when I left the board about a year ago, it was 800 people. So they had this explosive growth. And one of the things I worked with there was setting up their product organization. In the beginning, they just had a tech team and they didn't have any PMs at all. And then they started to establish this. And one of the early and crucial decisions we made was to think about team topology. And I think that was a key enabler for the PMs at Storytel to be able to be empowered like this. And so the first split we made was to say there are 3 teams now: markets, users, and content. And so the markets PM was responsible to all of the country managers, basically handling landing pages, different languages, the sign-up flow that was different for each country, regulations, like how do you do payments, all of that. They worked with that PM worked with like a launch of new countries schedule, like what do we need to launch in Brazil? What do we need to launch in this country? And then like we're really, really centered around that. And then on completely opposite side, or maybe partial opposite, was the content side. So they were completely focused on kind of working with handling royalty. It's much more complicated than you would almost think about imagining. It's crazy because every book has a contract, and you basically have a lot of different authors, a lot of authors, and then the authors get listened to in a complicated royalty scheme by millions of users, and each money has to be allocated through all these contracts. So it was crazy complicated. But also having like the publisher portal, anything that had to do with kind of publishers and content was carved out, and the country managers didn't care about that, and this tech team didn't have to have anything to do with that, and the vice versa. And then in the middle you had the users team. They were really focused on kind of the player, the reader, the bookshelf, the search, everything that you do inside the app. And so all of these 3 teams, they could work very independently, and they had their own users that they were talking with, and they had their own, partially even getting their own tech stack. And as the teams grew and grew and grew, each of these got separated into their own kind of sub teams. But for each of these, they managed to have this end-to-end responsibility. And so if you think about one way to look at that is like, if a PM can work with all of this, saying, what should my goal be here? What's the most important thing to accomplish? Where do I get, who gives me feedback? Like, what's the type of feedback flow I can get? Who can I talk to get more feedback and test ideas? And kind of, how can I involve the right people to prioritize what to do, refine and deliver? And I can own all of this together. Then I have the chance to be autonomous. Especially if I'm given kind of the license to be so by higher management. But if you think about separating into like a mobile app team or a iOS like iOS or Android, or you have like a platform team, if you have too much of that, then nobody has this end-to-end responsibility with their customers. So I think working towards a setup that is either something like this or like Marty Kagan suggests, where you can work across the process, is extremely relevant. It's like when I have discussions with teams about how to get started, how to be outcome oriented, a lot of those discussions, they kind of come back to thinking about concretely how the organization is and what the role of the PMs are in the area of responsibility. So I think it's good to kind of have in mind. And so I think it's good to be pragmatic about it. So PMs without an empowered setups, they can still work at being more outcome oriented, but still advocate. So I think PMs, like we discussed in the first one, should start to aim to take more leadership across the process, regardless of their setup. There's always things they can do. We'll dig in a little bit more to that later, as well as advocating with their leadership for having a setup where PMs can have more of like an end-to-end responsibility in a reasonable way, and kind of work with those 2 paths to being empowered and have an autonomy in tandem. So that's yeah.
Sorry, out of all the teams that you've worked with in your career or today with Delibr, what's the percentage of teams that are, you would say, Marty Kagan empowered? style team? Just
Or
is
maybe
it 1%?
20-30%, I think.
Oh wow, that's more than I expected. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. I think now, especially when it comes to teams nowadays that are, we work a lot with kind of, I guess you could, like the main is like SaaS B2B scale ups, if you know what I mean. And in a lot of those situations, you have you hire a CPO, you hire a couple of PMs, and then you realize, this doesn't work. We need to carve out a good structure. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So either they're like in intense tension because they can't handle it, or they have kind of separated them out. So I think it's not that bad, but maybe I have a biased.
There might be as well like a tiny bit of a bias in the sense that
Yeah. I'm not
working with Delibr, because if people are seeking a tool like Delibr, it just already means that they're aware that there's a better way of doing product.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not at all saying this is representative of overall teams. I just answer to, out of the people I talk with nowadays, then this.
Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing.
So I think you're right. I think there's a bias. Cool. So next breakout session. I think remember again to take the screenshot for this one. So the main question here is like, do you have a PM role where you have this type of end-to-end area of responsibility that allows you to work with an outcome and talk with users the way we have discussed previously in this course? And if not, what would be required for that to be the case? And when do you think that could happen? Like, how far away are you from that? Or and if someone in the group has this setup, it would also be really interesting to share what made that happen and how that looks concretely.
I think we came down to, well, at least within myself and Owen work together, and we have a very large product team that have different levels of skills, and they're all divided into squads. And myself and Owen sit kind of across all of those as kind of topic leaders or solution leaders. And we struggle with understanding if each of the squads who run individual products that we use to build our solutions or our propositions for the market, understand what we're asking of them. So we really like the idea of the solution tree and the goals tree to be able to say, this is what we're aiming for, and being able to use this kind of methodology to encourage more questions out of that group and encourage more communication on whether each of the outcomes is understood by each individual squad once it reaches their level, and how they tie together.
Yes, makes a lot of sense. Group number 3, Pablo, Kirin, and Veronica.
We had a discussion about transparency. So how much you actually want to explain and convince people, and when you actually should just, in terms of efficiency, say, okay, let's go this direction, and what it actually costs and motivation on both sides to decide for one of them, or to make the decision what you do in that situation. Yeah.
Cool. And I was a part of the first group, but I'll see. Are you here, Etty, or should I delegate to Nicholas?
Nicholas, you are better than me. There were many different things, so maybe you can do that again. Sorry.
1 second. The question. It was an interesting concept, but what was the question again that we discussed? I'm so sorry. What's the question we discussed?
We mainly discussed how do you say, when there's C-suite members of the C-suite that has a very strong will, and that where there's lacking trust in a way.
Yeah.
I felt like, at least that was the big conversation. And maybe people that are not that how do you say, they haven't worked a lot with software developers and product owners and product managers before, so they don't really understand what it takes to build a good product.
We actually talked about your trust equation, Niels, where we talked a bit mostly like Eti's situation, where she's really taking the initiative to organize her team the way she wanted to work and the way she believes she should be doing product. And that works really well, so long as the founder doesn't come and just kind of disrupt that organization. And so she was explaining that there are periods where she feels empowered. And then I guess I can say that the team works quite well, but then he comes and puts his nose into the way you do things and not necessarily in what you do. And that kind of disrupt your like dynamics, right?
Yeah.
And that's been a challenge of yours for quite some time. Is that a good summary?
Yes, it is. I think that it involves Elena too, because we were creating our two empowered teams with our developers and areas of work. So when you were showing this storytell example, so we had the core product with Elena, and then I was doing new initiatives. And I also suggested to the CEO to do another one with a premium product, which is subscriptions, with another person. But he, for some reason, he doesn't like that idea, and he wants me to do all like the PMPO role, which doesn't make sense because Elena wants to do that. So it's to me, it has to do with trust and maybe having control over things. We are too empowered, I guess, for him, or I don't know. So what we need is that he actually empower us, that he buys into that idea of empowered teams.
Cool.
So bottom line is we're waiting for you, Niels, to do that course with all the CEOs in the world, basically.
Wow. That's going to be an interesting challenge.
That's your
no pressure.
That's your goal.
Okay, aye.
You started it yesterday, Niels. Did you speak to 20, or was it 30?
No, it was 19. That was CPOs, CTOs, and some other executives, I think CEOs and CMOs as well. It was interesting. They loved the trust equation, which was so it could be that it works. Let's see. I'll definitely, based on this feedback, pick that thread up a little bit more.
Cool. All right. I guess back to you, Niels.
Okay, cool. So now we talked about zoom to hide a bit. So we talked about the kind of the extending your leadership across the PM process to level up, and we talked about getting a more empowered team. But there's also how should I say, the stoic approach of just saying that you have what you have, and you could still within that if you're stuck in kind of the level 2 land, you can still really be outcome driven from that point as well. And even if you're in level 3, it makes sense to do a bunch of these things. But just to kind of say that even if you don't have that kind of empowered team set up, or even if you don't have just an outcome to work towards, you can really have an outcome focus and push that all the way into delivery. And so there are so the first thing already mentioned is to kind of to take charge of the features that you do, and kind of structure them and have like a perspective on that in some artifact, like a document, and then make sure that within that document you have a super clear outcome focus, and that the outcome focus can kind of live through that. And then use that as and a third part we'll talk about to kind of create a shared understanding with team and stakeholders to make sure now this is what we are really doing and everybody gets on board. So just now, first off, the kind of the base of it. There's a cool concept at Amazon. They have the 2 pizza team, and they basically say that everybody that works on something, if you can get absolutely everybody to share 2 pizzas. Now this is American pizza, so I think this 2 pizza team is like 6 or 8 people. I think if you get that size of team, you should get them full time in the same room, and this should be mega full stack. So not just developer and PM and designer, but also whatever marketing person or support person that needs to be involved, like everybody that needs to make something happen. This is not just this is anything in the project, so it's like anything that needs to happen. If you have everybody, so you never need to contact anybody, we just have somebody in the room to do it. Then you can have all the loops closed. You don't need to write down anything. You can maybe write stuff on the wall. You say it out loud. Couldn't you contact that guy? Yes, I'll do it. Boom. What about you? What about this one? Yes. And they just close the loop all the time. But unless that's the case, there's going to be trouble capturing this conversation because you say something and somebody's not in the room. And so to avoid these disconnected conversations that happen, if you can't have absolutely everybody in the same room, then you need to write things down. So ideally, get everybody in the same room. If not, write things down. And in almost all cases here, we're in writing things down land. And then the thing I already mentioned, this one is like try to have capture details in a single source of truth for every kind of. There's some theory they call it boundary object, but it's in product development is something like an epic, or it's like a project that you can run that has can't be too big, it can't be too large, too small. It should be like a collaboration entity that you can kind of collaborate around, and then center the document around that, and let that live all the way through the entire process for that project. And when you do. Because this is going to be epics for you, most likely, try to have like templates that cover the topics you want to do. I'm sure there's 2 extremes. One is you have no template, you just write it from scratch. It doesn't give you any support in figuring out what to write. And it also doesn't drive any cohesion, so it's hard to read somebody else's document. But then on the other end, you have like everybody starts with a template with 20 headings, but then when you start off, you're like, oh, what is this even? It's like, and for a long time, like only the 3 or 4 of the headings are going to be filled, and it's going to be a lot of empty headings. It's going to be a little bit weird, and some of the headings maybe never be relevant for this particular project. And so we think that the best middle ground is like figure out a good starting point where you have a bunch of headings that could be relevant, and then you pick the relevant ones as you go, and then you kind of get the speed while you get the support and the standardization at the same time as you really work with this. And of course, coming from Delibr, we believe that outliners is the way to go here. There are a bunch of outliner tools. I don't know if you heard about Workflow or Dynalist or Roam Research. They are great outliner tools. Delibr is, of course, also an outliner tool for product managers. But regardless of which one you use, if you use one of these, you can add a lot of information and then just collapse it down. So you can always have the relevant, you can let it be the single source of truth that has everything, while at the same time, you can kind of collapse down or filter out to show the relevant thing for each person that you have a meeting with. So that's one recommendation, to be able to have this entity that you can work with for each project. So and once you have that, you can really make sure that the outcome focus lives on here. So the first thing to recognize is that you won't be in the perfect opportunity solution tree land. A lot of features are going to come either strategy, like leadership or sales just said, just build this feature. We need to have GDPR. No user is ever going to tell you that. or maybe, but I don't, not normally. And sometimes it's just feedback that you get that you haven't figured it out, doesn't fit on a tree. But if 200 users ask for something, you just have to do it. So wherever they come from, you just need to be ready to pick it up and do it, and mix it in when you prioritize. But then wherever it comes from, to kind of anyway, regardless, say, okay, what is the business goal that this is going to help? And what is the user need that we're solving? If you work with an opportunity solution tree, you get this for free. But if you work with it, anyway, when you write a document, you should have like, what's the customer feedback? What's the measure of success? And that allows you to kind of come back to this all the time. And then one thing that's for free when you think about it in an opportunity solution tree is to think about different solutions. But when you work in a document like this, like we're doing a solution, this is what we're going to do to push yourself to have a section you go alternative solutions. What are the what if we do this one? What are the other alternatives? So we don't just go in the feature factory mode, but actually test a little bit. Is there another way we could do this? Maybe this is there's another way to drive the outcome better. So that's one way to kind of keep that focus. Another one is this when you write these documents, to make sure to have like a section for validation where you think about the risks. What could go wrong here? Like going through the assumptions you have and think about how sure you are that they're right. And if it's a solution that's big to build, it's a little bit risky, and there are some assumptions that you don't really sure about, then do some experiments to make sure you don't just ship something it doesn't work. It's much more expensive to build it and ship it than to do a little bit of a test. So keep that in mind to allow you to be outcome focused. And this is something you can be even if you kind of it feels like you're in a feature factory. You can still check what are the assumptions for this one. And the same thing, like it's good that you do features like measure of success is super valuable, and then have an tracking to do that and follow up. Of course, use this with judgment. For a small improvement, it doesn't have to be like this. For a single user story, maybe not. But if it's something bigger that you feel like now this is being pushed through the feature factory, at least be sure to figure out, well, okay, what's the measure of success here? I like one phrase I really like to do to use. I would encourage you to do is I just want to understand. It's a little bit of a powerful tool because it's hard for somebody to say, no, you didn't need to understand. Let's do it. But you say, I just want to understand. What's the measure of success here? Or I just want to understand. Are there any alternative solutions that we have considered? So that allows you to kind of open up the box a little bit, even if you're pushed into this kind of space. So I went through a couple of things that you can think about as you get in and you have a feature. If it's not exactly what you thought, to still use this space with the Epic document to ask a couple of pointed questions, like what's the measure of success, what customer feedback was it based on, what are the assumptions, and that allows you to kind of, maybe if you ask those questions and people have no good answer and you have a little bit of dissent, maybe they go, okay, wait a minute, let's hold back on this one. Okay, and then the next one that's also so valuable is like whenever you're going to build something, and now I'm preaching to the choir, I'm sure, but it helps to think about it as user stories instead of just requirements, because people have so many different perspectives. I'm sure you've seen this triangle, square, circle coming down to a star before, but I think it's just like bears reminding that when you try to articulate why to do something, to write it as user stories is a great way, and then inviting everybody. Okay, is this the user story that we're trying to do now here? And if you have a document where you figure it out and you say, so basically, if these stories are true, have we done it then? And to have that type of discussion. And of course, the way to, if it's a little bit of a bigger feature, and it seems like a lot of stories that come in here, we need to do all of these things to then go a little bit, hey, wait a minute, let's maybe do a user story mapping for it and try to Moscow it out to push down the stuff and maybe only do the musts and some of the shoulds and not the other ones. So that's something that you kind of, as you get pushed into delivering all these features, there's the user story mapping is a great way to kind of diminish the amount of this feature that you will actually have to build to kind of push this conversation. It's like, what's really the measure of success here? If this is the measure of success, you show up in a document, and then you say, these are all the user stories. Maybe we don't need to do all these user stories. We could try with these first and then measure, and then maybe we do the other ones. So, and this is like stuff you can do even if we're in this box, right? And then like all these conversations that you have with people about all these stories, like when they say, but we need to do it like this, and it's important that we have it like this, to capture all these conversations. It's very easy that a lot gets said and it doesn't get written down, but actually the user story is a great kind of anchor for a discussion about the individual part of conversation. So just attach all the stuff that you say about it to this, like when you write about, draw it out, how is it going to look like, add it in there and so forth. And then of course, just capturing all that and adding all that detail to the user stories in the document. That means the document will grow, but if you then collapse it back down, it will still be neat and handy for you, but you will still have all the detail that's relevant if people ask for more. Cool. Another thing that happens a lot is this. There's so PMs now we get in a little bit like, because one thing that you have to do as a PM, you have to handle all this complexity in shipping all these features. And so here, by being a little bit smart, you can be more effective and reduce all the time that gets spent in all the details, and that allows you to do a little bit of the stepping up in the process that we talked about earlier. One such kind of crazy time drain could be all the decisions. So there's a lot of micro decisions, you could call it, within each feature. And so I think one trick is to think about these all these micro decisions and try to frame them as questions. When then the answer is an answer to that, the decision is an answer to that question. If you practice this art, whenever you write something and you go, this is not entirely sure, like maybe you would just like, then OAuth tokens will be sent. Like, wait a minute, this is actually, we're saying users will be authorized using OAuth. Hey, wait a minute. This is, if you're not sure about this, then you could take a step back and write it as a question. What standards you use for user authorization? OAuth. And if you write this as a question and answer, then people can react to it. So it's a great way to kind of prompt people to say, this is what you can write it and make a decision yourself, but that way you have exposed your thinking, and it allows you to have much more of a kind of have your back clean. I don't know if you say that in English. No, like you keep kind of not having stuff going around behind your back. You have everything in control because you've taken care of everything up front. So it's a really good way. And if a question becomes problematic or like controversial, then you bring in people and discuss it. So I think that's one neat thing. And then of course, one mega time drain is having to write all this and then having to write it all across different Jira tickets. And then that's just like to have, when you write a document, to have clear link between the document and all the Jira tickets can save you a lot of time. Either if you copy paste the links between your document tool and Jira, or if you use a tool with two-way sync, for example, Delibr.
All right. So hopefully you remember Neil's mattress store example that he told us about on Monday. Now this exercise, you are all the newest product managers for the mattress store, which is a mattress store chain with 1,000 locations across the US. And your first assignment is to help the company get more people to test a bed while visiting one of their stores. So a product goal, you want to somehow influence how people are behaving when they enter the store. The exercise is that you as a group are going to create an opportunity solution tree based on the mattress store example. And you can freely ideate opportunity solutions experiments and arrange them however you see fit in the tree structure. Think messy and don't be afraid to group your opportunities, similar to how Nicholas had done in his opportunity solution tree example. And the only thing that is defined already is the desired outcome at the top. So getting more people to test a bed while in a store. And you will have 15 minutes to do this. And in the chat now, I will send a link, hopefully, to... So all of you, I think, are members of the Delibr team in the Delibr Academy team. So if you go by this link, you should get to a collection that is called the mattress store. And then I have 3 documents there with your name, depending on who was in the group. Does the link work?
It works.
Yes. In the documents, I print screened and put the assignment as well, so you can go back and read it. But basically, the idea is for you to freely think about what could potential problems and desires and unfulfilled needs be for people that visits the mattress store, and what are potential solutions and experiments we could run. And then we're going to go back in 15 minutes, and we're going to look across the 3 opportunity solution trees, and we're going to talk about that. So that's the exercise. Any questions? All right, guys, welcome back.
Hey.
All right, I'm eager to have a look at how you guys decided what you ideated for types of opportunities and solutions, and how you decided to structure your OSTs. Is there anyone that is brave enough to go first and screen share and show the rest of the group what they came up with?
I think I don't mind if Kirin agrees.
Pablo is the bravest.
It's like in class, right? You'd rather go first and end with the end with the misery as soon as possible.
True.
I'm joking, of course. Okay, so basically, the way we try to get in, please jump in, okay, at any moment. Okay, so again, Kirin, jump in at any time. Basically, of course, we try to be as messy as possible, also as structured as possible, but with little time. Instead of doing a lot of branches or levels in the tree, we just went for, I mean, we basically brainstormed what could be the problems around people not lying down. Basically, we saw 5 different stuff that then we would see how to break them a bit more in some cases. The first one is just people do not want to lie down. You have to lie down. The second one would be that actually people do not know where to lie down, so it's unclear what bed to test. These 2 are not very messy, but customers are confused about the layout, sorry. So not clear path what to follow. So basically comes down to, again, being a bit confused on what bed you should be testing. Another thing was sometimes people can have the feeling of, what would I even try the matches? Why to lie down for a couple of minutes? The actual usage is going to be 8 hours, right? So what's the change anyway? And then the last one would be people do not want to lie down because they feel that it's a commitment to buy in some cases, right? So, I mean, if there are no comments, I would just continue, okay? So feel free to stop me at any point. For the opportunities, then we open up this one in 3 different ones. In trying to be messy a little bit. The first one, people are hygiene conscious and don't want to lie on a dirt bed. The opposite one would be people are hygiene conscious and don't want to put dirt on the bed. Okay. For the 2 of them, we find different solutions somehow. So similar to the COVID moment, put signs all around the store, around the cleaning practices followed. Then the second one would be kind of in spas or in things like this, where you get a nice rope before you go into the massage or into the spa or whatever. Try to do kind of the same experience so that people are not just could not be damaging their own clothes. Put dirt on bed. Oh yeah, so this one that would be the opposite, right? Try to put signs on, yeah, feel free to try me anyway. I will be clean soon anyway. Then people are embarrassed to lie down on beds. So we've seen two different solutions. The first one is actually my favorite. Hire some sleepers. So just people lying down the entire day there. The second one would probably be more mature, which would be just put some type of privacy around the bed. So some, small walls or things like this so that people feel a bit more at home. On the unclear what bed to test, so we had a couple of things. Of course, better train salespeople. That would just make sense. The second one would be as you enter the store and you get your nice rope, there could be some guide or map or rules on where to start. So based on your height, based on your weight, based on how you sleep, if you sleep, on the back, on the side or whatever, okay, this is where you should be starting. This is the, if you have like a map of the store, okay, zone A is for you, zone B is for you, and so on, based on, your type of sleeping.
Yeah, I saw that with group 2 as well.
Good. Group 2 is smart, I guess.
Validation.
Very similar. I mean, customers confused about the store layout. Very similar situation, right? Have a clear layout, at least based on price or based on whatever, so you know where to start somewhere.
Yeah.
The note worth trying. So this one, I think actually the solution was pretty smart. Try to train people on how to make people confident that they're trying the bed in the right way. So be structured on the ways to try. Okay, have 3 steps. So okay, you now and make sure the salespeople is guiding the process, right? Okay, now you have to lay down on your back. You have to make sure that your how you would call this part of the, your neck is not hurting, blah, blah, blah. Then maybe your butt or whatever. Now you lay down on your side for a couple of minutes. And now we're testing if it hurts here or here, or if you're not comfortable here, and then the same on the other side and blah, blah, blah. So, having kind of a structured way of trying the mattress, not just lying down, because it's complicated to understand whether you actually
that actually happened to me when I was trying my the bed that I'm currently sleeping in. I had a 30-minute session with the person that sold me the bed.
Amazing. To me, it was I had a long session. I ended up buying a bed I'm not so comfortable with. Spent a lot of money and it sucked. Yeah, I know what I'm talking about. This was a couple of weeks ago. So the last one we don't have a solution for. People do not want to lay down as they feel it's a commitment to buy. We didn't get to the solution. So
cool.
If you, I don't know if there are any comments. Otherwise, I will stop sharing my screen.
We had the commitment to buy also, and I need to open the screen again. Wait 1 second. One of the solutions, book a slot. I didn't even see this one. Book a slot, come take a nap here for 6 minutes before buying, train sales staff to be mindful. And then one experiment would be not having the sales people being pushed and going to you, like leave you to try alone. And then you can have maybe a button that you can press if you want help, if you want the salesperson to come to you. And then create a home environment where it's accepted to lay down, kind of like IKEA, and giving out incentives to try. And we had many similar ones that you mentioned too.
Interesting. How did yours look? Do you mind sharing, Eti?
Yes, I can share. Let's see.
Was it hard to kind of think about how to be messy in the structure? Like what was there, and what do you think worked well with this exercise?
To be honest, I don't think we were really thinking too much about being messy, did we? Like we were not like actively comparing, but I think at least the opportunity level we were. Can you see my screen, by the way?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, we didn't go too many opportunities, but it's the being awkward, like I feel uncomfortable. Then the hygiene problem, which we think it's different, and the pressure to buy. We felt that they are different, at least they are not really
Absolutely.
super overlapping.
And I guess if you did like the continuous interviewing that that we talked about earlier in the course, nuances of all of these would emerge. And I guess that's what Pablo and Kirin was thinking a little bit about, like what could we potentially hear underneath the umbrella and not comfortable testing the bed. And that's at least my experience, that when you start to talk to customer, you get a lot of nuances, and then it's about figuring out where do they fit in this tree, try to make it easy and insightful.
Mhm.
Looks good.
Yeah. Should I stop sharing? Okay.
And then
What I feel worked for us, it's not always easy, especially if it's non-product people, not super savvy, differentiating the different layers. But I think at least works for me, is framing the opportunity as what would your user say, for example, in like kind of an I statement.
Yeah. So it could be a quote, basically. You could put quote marks within.
Yeah, a quote, for example.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I like it too.
Yes.
It's unescapable, because sometimes it's always hard to be to really escape from your own perspective. But if you force yourself to write it as if the customer said I something, then it's like then it will automatically be from the perspective of the customer. There's no way around it, so to speak. So I like it too as an approach.
Yes, indeed. Brian, do you mind sharing yours?
Sure. Sure. Okay, so we struggled a lot with whether or not the things like over on the far left, learning about this mattress store and getting to the store were about the outcome itself, whether the outcome was about once they arrived in store, or whether there was other things like getting people to the store. Does that drive more into the outcome, or was that getting people to the store? Is that pre this outcome? So on the far left here. So when we kind of decided that getting people to the store would drive the opportunity to get people to try a bed in store, we looked at things like parking is expensive, not being able to find parking, and some solutions for those might be validating or refunding parking if you try a bed. While everyone was talking, I just threw in, not being able to find parking. So stores might be in a place where there is not much parking. So is there an opportunity to, do mini pop-up stores and areas of high footfall? And one of those experiments could be putting different beds in the shopping mall and giving people a free entry into a competition, for example, if you try a bed. Because if you can get people to try them for 30 seconds in a shopping mall, maybe they'll consider going to an out of town store to try them for their half hour sleep session, for example. And that's where, if you look at the inside the store section, we have inside the store, people don't know you can try a bed. We need to advertise that. Maybe there's a personal bed advisor, like, you said you had your 30-minute session, and maybe you need to actually advise someone who's a sleep specialist rather than just someone selling a bed. So you can talk about people's sleep patterns. And I didn't know where to put this, but maybe there's then other extended things that creates the store to be more of a experiential event or more of a kind of a trusted advisor, because they can say, well, cotton sheets might not be the best for you. You might sell those things. It might be not the objective, but they're adjacent to the objective.
Yeah.
Then we also looked at, I think everyone else has said it, people not wanting to lie down on the beds. So not wanting to remove shoes, being awkward, maybe a solution for that is, some slippers like you get in a hotel. And people are embarrassed to test beds. So Elena said maybe you can privatize the sections where you try the different types of beds and maybe hygienic plastic wrapping or something along there. But we also looked at people don't understand that there's different types of beds. Couples can't agree on bed types, and we have a quote in there basically saying, I like a soft bed, he likes a hard bed. You know, how do you deal with that? And maybe the opportunity is measuring someone's a bit, you know, what bed someone like by using technology with a pressure plate to say, you know, this person is better in soft, person is better in hard bed, or some other metrics to do that, because there's lots of smart bed solutions coming online now. So
There is.
That's the way we thought about it. But it was a very interesting model because we're so used to talking about technology, having to think about retail really stretched us.
Yes, I noticed that when I came in, you were already thinking about the technical solutions that could potentially help you with this outcome.
Yeah. I already had a super smart bed, that could, you know, tell you how long you were sleeping for, and
yeah. All right, so this means that now everyone has been a part of creating an opportunity solution tree, and that was part of the goal with this exercise, and also learning how to group things and thinking in a MECE structure. So super happy about that. We don't have much more time, so I'm going to hand over back to you, Niels, for a potential wrap up. I think it makes a lot of sense. So yeah, over to you, Niels.
I just have one question. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Go for it.
How do you add labels, tags to your cards? Because
should I show them? That's the reason.
Sorry, maybe I'm disrupting, but
no, go ahead, Andre, show it.
I will show it. Do you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
All right. So let's say, so this is one of yours, right? Yeah. So this label here is, it basically picks up if someone has used a quote bullet within a document. So maybe you go quotes, and we put this one should be a normal one, maybe a heading, and then you can start to populate like this. And then we calculate how many quote bullets are there in this card, so to speak, and that is then showed on this. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is, and this I really recommend, is let's assume that this solution here used tech measure the firmness for right person. This would be what Niels was talking about before, like an epic document, PRD. You write about the solution here. So then you can start to populate some of these headings and start to define and refine this solution inside of the card. But at this point, this is just a card within your opportunity solution tree. But it makes sense to carve it out as a separate document. And that way you can invite people to come in and only look at this solution document and give comments and answer questions and all of that. So what you do is you click on the the meatball menu here and turn it into create as document, turns it into a separate document. It gets a document icon here when you do that. So the difference now is when I open this up, you have all of the functionality of commenting like you have in the Delibr documents. And you can filter the document. You can basically do whatever, but you can also use the document properties up here. And document properties, they sit on the document, and they could, for instance, be free text, like let's build this in Q1. Or they could be, let's say, solution status makes a lot of sense here. This is in inbox right now. Boom.
Does that appear on the solution tree then?
Exactly. So now that I go back, I can see, now I can see, oh, I have one question that's undecided. It's in inbox. Let's build this in Q1. Nice. And then I open this up, and you can actually use the filter function to filter the document for instance, question to say. And if I make a decision here, boom, then this will be visible. Oh, it should be. It's yeah, there we go. Now it's one question that has been decided. And this also works for Jira. So if I took this card here and I said that this is an epic in Jira. Boom, 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 add it. Then as soon as this is created now, boom, we have an epic here. And this epic is now in to do. This will be visible here as well. So we have one new Jira issue. And then as you move that along, you will see that the status changes here, to do, in progress, done, and so forth.
Is it possible to highlight some cards, for instance, because you have here different solutions maybe for the same problem, and at some point you want to disregard one of them and focus on the second one? Would it be possible to have something like this?
Yeah, if I understand you correct, you want to make it visually visible that this solution, for instance, has been rejected. Is that?
Yeah, or prioritize or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Or prioritize. Yeah, I would use the same the same way of doing it, but then you can go in and create a new property that is like let's call it. I guess solution status is a good one, but like rejected / prioritized.
Okay.
And then you have single select, and you only have two options here. One is rejected, and that is red, and then prioritized, for instance, and that one is green. Okay. Save. And then this one is prioritized green.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yes. Because the idea in Delibr is that you have this tree, but you will probably have more than one tree that you are working on at any given time. Maybe you only have one, but it's possible to have many. And so if you create a collection out here that is, for instance, solution Kanban board, then this collection, you can then say, you can style it as a board to be based on, for instance, the solution statuses that you give your different solutions. And then you can add your existing documents. Now I don't remember what was it, measure? Yes, this one, right? Then you add those documents to this board. So they are still linked from your opportunity solution tree. You can see them there, but you also have this view here where you can then move along your different solutions to measure where they are. And when you do that, I think it was this one, right? If you go to the opportunity solution tree, yes, now this is in validation, which I just moved it in. So that will stick along as you move it along in your Kanban, for instance. And this brings us into, there was a question before. So basically, I don't know if we should go into that, like the vision of Delibr for January, Nils, or if it's for another conversation. The tables and the SQL.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if it's, but as you can imagine, the app Delibr is developing all the time, and so we'll add more features. Like view documents in tables and view them in Gantt view and so forth. But let's maybe I'm looking at the time as well. So maybe we should do the wrap up. Thank you very much for the walkthrough, Andrea. Super good. And then I'll do the sharing, because now I just wanted to recapitulate where we're at. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So we did a little bit of exercise. And so the goal for the last session was that you should feel like, okay, in theory, opportunity solution tree really makes sense. And now that you should feel like they could actually work in practice, I'm excited to make that happen. And we have tried and tested both different angles for how they could fit into your work, and also some practical work. So that's what where we wanted to be. But then, like we have continued to talk about, Some of you have already booked the meeting, which I think is great. I look forward to those. But basically, we're just saying here, we're happy to help, regardless, as they wrote in the beginning. I think this comes back a little bit to this discussion in the breakouts, regardless of whether it is kind of concretely thinking about what your tree would look like in your situation, or whether it is having more of a discussion on how to overcome hurdles that make it hard for you to work in this way of working at all. Either type of discussion, we just as a part of the course, we wanted to append to the stuff we went through, to also offer to just book a one-on-one, and I'm happy to sit down and discuss with you kind of what's top of your mind, what's the thing you want to take away from this course, and basically, yeah, you can use my time as you see fit. So that's one last push for that. And then I also just wanted to say thank you very much for participating in the course. Please don't be a stranger. Connect with me on LinkedIn. If you like my book, don't hesitate. If of course we encourage you to continue to work with the Delibr app, and to join the Slack community. I was really happy to see all the engaged discussions during the day today. So it would be cool if those could continue in Slack. And you are now the first batch, but of course we'll try to get more of these as we go along. Yeah, and that was basically that. So then the course now. We'll have some time if you want to have any discussions. That's open. And yeah, just a big thank you from me and also from Andrea. It has been a pleasure working with you. And yeah, now if we have just a few minutes formal time, so I understand if for those of you who want to leave, just want to say thank you, and then over to question time. Excited to hear any thoughts or questions that you might have.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for being pioneers with us in this Delibr Academy. I hope that you
we learned a lot as well.
Holy smokes, yeah. We learned a lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop off. I want to thank you guys. This was very useful for me. I'm happy also to learn from peers in industry. So yeah, I'm looking forward to other academy sessions about outcome-driven products. So yeah, stay in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you, Niklas.
Bye-bye.
Guys, I have a question around your product roadmap. So Jira is a big component of the Delibr solution, but is there plans to enable kind of the task management part of delivering products, or the kind of epic management part in other platforms like ClickUp or something like that?
There are two answers to that. One answer is that Jira, a lot of people use Jira, so we don't plan to build an as extensive and deep integration with another tool in the near term. And I guess that of course anything can happen beyond that. But the other answer is that we're very actively working with Zapier integration, and there's a lot of stuff you can do. We're learning and testing out a lot of stuff with that. So so for quite a few things, I think being able to link it up via Zapier could solve quite a few needs if it's adjacent to the stuff that you do in Jira. So I don't know if that's an answer for you.
That's exactly the answer I was looking for.
Cool.
Yeah, Akash is on the line. He'll be already integrating it with Zapier by the time we finish.
On that same kind of topic, at Prag Life, we just got this tool called Craft. We talked, I think, with you, Andre, me and Saga. Saga used to work at Storytel and she loves Delibr. But the reason why we didn't go with that, I think the first need that we had before was like having a good roadmap too. And it's like now we have different tools, and it's like the most important for all the teams is having a good road mapping tool. Do you guys have any plans to add something like that to Delibr?
Yes. So the first roadmap, and if you mean by, I mean, you can already now have kind of now, next, later type of roadmaps in Delibr, but I guess you mean like Gantt type roadmaps, and then the first iteration of that will come during January.
Yeah, I think there is no perfect tool for that today. It's so annoying. You know, maybe having high level roadmap that you can maybe have nested like then epics, and then you can see in different levels. Like maybe when I'm talking to the CEO, I can show the quarters, and then for the teams, I want it to be a little bit more detailed. Yeah, so we've been trying a lot of different tools. Now we are trying this one called Favro. I don't know where they are from. Maybe they are from Sweden.
From Uppsala.
Yeah, and you know, but it's still not, it's still a lot of like UX problems there. And I was looking like, you know, Delibr is so nice, but if you had the road mapping tool, that would be super nice. Like
Yes,
something.
so I can't promise that the first version is going to solve all your needs, but the first version is coming in January, and then we'll have the ability to basically put all the documents that you're working with, or select which ones you want on like a Gantt view, and work with timings of different versions. So and maybe it would be relevant to have a discussion to figure out, to make sure what your needs are, and whether we could fulfill those as well.
Yes, if you need you know, someone for user interviews, I can be interviewed because I have a lot of ideas on that.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Let's set that up. I like that idea, I think. I have one such interview tomorrow, actually, with Fredrika, our designer. So yeah, I'll be in touch.
Nice.
Cool, guys.
I need to go because the game is starting right now.
Oh, yeah.
Good luck.
So thank you guys, it was really, really nice. And I think everyone was I was telling Helena, everyone is so smart and so well spoken. I'm really impressed. Like it was really nice too. Just the conversations are like super worth it for this course. So
I agree, so nice.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll send out a survey tomorrow, I think. So hope to get your feedback on what was good and what we can improve, of course, as well. But thank you so much for joining, guys, and yeah, I'll be in touch.
Thank you very much. Good luck with the game.
thank you. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.